how we measure the progress, how we build around a time-based element, how we throw back into progress, how we forecast, how we reforecast, how things are collected from the field, how things are monitored in the field, how things are rolled up into the ERP system. We'll even look at some examples of that as well. And irregardless of what ERP system it is, because it's fantastic when you look at these things and you think, well, that's great. I wish I did have SAP, or I wish I did have Oracle Financial, but we're not tying this down to any one system. So it's irregardless of whether it's SAP you have, or Viewpoint, or Oracle Financials, or whatever that system you have to be. Today's topic is really independent of any system, and for that matter, it's really independent of the system, maybe even hard dollars for that matter. We are here, specifically with some great, co-hosts that we're going to talk about here in a second. We have the privilege of being on the line today with a few co-hosts that we're going to introduce here just momentarily, as we are joined by quite a few attendees today. This is a really super popular sign up today. I think we had over 125 people, 150 people sign up for today's session. So we're pretty jazzed about today's workshop. But it's a very popular topic, and it's one, like I said, that's very agnostic in terms of the need. So I'll go ahead and get started, because I think we're definitely at past the top of the hour now. So let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Ron Babich, and I'm the Senior Vice President here at Hard Dollar. Joining me today is Mike Merrill, as well as David Perry. Mike's the COO of About Time. Dave Perry is the Regional VP of Sales at About Time, and we're going to go through and talk about what About Time here does in just a minute, as well as Dan Beck, the senior consultant at D.R. McNatty, and Eric Constantino, the consultant at D.R. McNatty as well, too. And let me give you just kind of a brief overview of what Hard Dollar does, and we're going to just kind of give you a summary, recap of what our organizations do collectively here together, and then walk through that workflow process that we're kind of here to learn about today. So if we can go to the next slide. So first and foremost, I just want to kind of give you a recap of what Hard Dollar does. We won't spend a lot of time on, but Hard Dollar is a 20-year-plus company that has a lot of experience in engineering and construction. We created a category of project cost management about 7 years ago. We have over 22,000 users, really plus, worldwide, that manage trillions of projects. We have consecutively made the Inc. 500 list now for the last several years, and hopefully we'll make it again this year, too, in 2013. We're also an ongoing member of the ConstructTech 50-plus list in 2011-12, and we're also in multitudes of industries. Oil and gas is a leading market for us. Mining is a leading market for us. Heavy civil is an obvious one for us as well, too. Environmental is a strong suit for us as well, too. Underground construction is a very good tie-in for us as well, too. So we've got a good breadth in terms of our experience and our knowledge in that space. And then if we hit the next slide. We wind up in terms of our breadth and in terms of product. We do three things. In our world, we do cost model estimates. We wind up helping people build those cost model estimates from the ground up or top down, from feasibility studies, pre-fees, all the way through the detail estimate. We also help people measure progress. That's the real prime advantage we have. Since we put all that detail into the estimate, we do a pretty nice job of measuring progress at any level against that estimate. And then last but not least is, now that we've got all the really great information from the bottoms up, we help kind of forecast that progress against the estimate, and then reforecast and reforecast against baseline budgets, control budgets, original estimates, current budgets, and so on and so forth, and then pass that information back and forth to the finance system. And that's part of our discussion today that we're going to talk about, and kind of best practices around that. So then if you hit the next slide. Now, kind of where our focus is going to be at today is from an environmental perspective, mining infrastructure. We're going to be agnostic in terms of industries. The job we're going to look at today is definitely more a little bit on the infrastructure side. We're going to take some excavation items, and we're going to look at some plant process pipe stuff today as well, too. But we're going to be a little agnostic as we kind of follow the bouncing ball today, and we look at some progress as we measure it. So let's hit the next one. And we will focus as well as we kind of proceed here and the middle part, as as I toss it over to About Time is going to kind of go through and describe what they do. And Mike, can you kind of pop on here, David, and give an overview of what you guys do and bring to the table? May have to unmute David on there. Well, he might be having some audio problems, and that's okay because I can't hear him. I'm assuming if I can't hear him, then maybe everybody else can't either. But I'll just mention it. About Time has been around for quite some time. Hard Dollar has gone into a partnership with About Time and has built some integrations so that mobile field tracking is dialed into a Hard Dollar, bringing progress at the labor level, the equipment level, as well as man hours, equipment, and other material levels directly into Hard Dollar, feeding off of the estimate, feeding into the job tracking system, and then essentially driving that forecast equation so that all of the reporting stuff that we're going to look at here in a second is happening in real time. That's going to drive that EVM360 equation that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. And if those guys fix kind of the audio problems, I'll let Mike and those guys kind of describe the company a little bit further. But what's the nice thing about Time as well is they've got just a ton of experience with integrations built into all of the other ERP systems as well, Viewpoint, SAP, Oracle Financials, and they're just no stranger to the market in terms of their history into the ERP equation as well. So let's go to the next slide. And the next one. There we go. I'll toss it over to Dan and Eric over at DR McNatty and let them describe kind of the hosted process that DR McNatty provides, as well as their Oracle and Primavera introduction to their organization before we start the workflow process of EVM360. Dan and Eric, I'm going to toss it over to you guys.
Okay, good morning. My name is Eric Costantino with DR McNatty and Associates. I've been a consultant here for 7 years. I started out actually doing estimating, and essentially, we looked all over the field for a tool that can essentially be able to integrate the smoothest into Primavera P6, considering that we are a major Primavera reseller, as well as we provide hosting services for these types of applications that need to be accessed within a centralized environment. So essentially, what we've done is, starting out as an estimator, I found Hard Dollar as my favorite tool out of anything because it did pretty much everything that I needed it to do as a technical estimator. And as we got more into the scheduling and implementation side, the only thing that I can do was, really just bow down to Hard Dollar for its capabilities for just clicking once and then creating my whole schedule. So we were able to take that information, tie it all together, cost load and fully resource load it by a click of a button. So as soon as I seen that functionality years ago, I was on board since day one. So again, thanks for having us here. We do the hosting, we do the training for Primavera products. We also support Hard Dollar. We also kind of deploy any implementations, as well as integrate different applications into Primavera, such as contract management. So essentially, when you get this suite of applications, like About Time to Hard Dollar, and Hard Dollar to Primavera, and Primavera bolted to the contracts, which is going through the accounting. I mean, everything is a suite of 360 degrees of project controls. You really find a sweet spot to start really saving some money as far as time goes. And thank you guys for having us.
Hey, thanks. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and get into the process now. And if we go ahead and hit the next slide. We'll start at the beginning, which is a great place to start, of course. And we'll start by kind of what is the vision for today. So our vision for today is unifying these systems of record, taking it, as I mentioned before, taking it from the cost model. Let's bring a time phase elements that we're going to go ahead and wrap around start and finish dates around those scope elements. Then we're going to build progress around those elements that we devise as scopes, so those work packages that we build out. And then we're going to toss that budget over to finance, update it again, build progress from the field so that we're going to update quantities, man hours, essentially from the field, toss that back over to the system so that we're going to reforecast that information and essentially look at what that outcome is, and then identify by exception what those potential opportunities are so that we can make adjustments continuously and do something that we really have never had the opportunity to do before, which is be able to make smart decisions about resources and where we should be making adjustments and how we should be making decisions about our cash flow that we couldn't make until potentially 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later, where now we can make decisions literally that day if we want to, that day or the following day or that week, really that granular if we want to. So that's really the exciting part. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right to it, and let me show you kind of where we're heading with this as far as the big vision. Let me show you kind of a sample workflow, and then we're going to get right into the kind of the process of where we're going to go. So let's hit the next slide. So kind of where we start is we're going to nail 4 issues here. Cash flow. We're going to dial in with what we do from an earned value perspective. We're going to reconcile that to the back end with project reconciliation. So we're going to take what the accounting system thinks. We're going to take what we think are those accrual data, and we're going to match that up with what our field data is. We're also going to take that historical project reference, and we're going to use that kind of moving forward. And we're going to use that activity performance to measure what we believe was supposed to happen in the field and view what's actually happening in the field against it and compare and contrast that performance information and see if we can be smart about what that data really looks like, okay? So let's hit the next one. We'll get to our little diagram here of what we're going to do here in the system. So here's where we're at. This is when the rubber meets the road here. So typically, in most cases, this is where the heavy lifting's at, and this is the problem we're trying to solve. In the world of disparity, the schedule winds up being independent, right? We've got a schedule that we do that we get heavy lifted to us every week or every month, and gets periodically changed all of the time, and it gets sent over to all of these different stakeholders. That gets shared in between those stakeholders, between the owner, the EPCM, and the contractor. And the heavy lifting comes between trying to compare and build into a different aspect of time collection, a different aspect of updating that schedule with the scope from the estimate or re-estimate or different updated baselines that are happening, as well as tracking the actual costs that are happening, updated budgets that are happening on the bottom. So all 4 of those things then become completely and are independent. So our goal for today is how we build that kind of cohesiveness and collaborative between all 4 of those things, meanwhile making life a lot easier over on the right-hand side so that we're not taking 6 to 8 weeks to kind of build all this stuff out on the left and making it a lot easier and much more efficient. How can we bring this stuff together in a day versus like 6 or 8 weeks, which is what we're going to do right now. So let's go to the next slide. So the end game is this slide, which we're going to wind up with on this exercise. We will wind up with this exercise having the ability to centralize all of it in one central data warehouse, be agnostic. We won't care if it's what ERP system it is. We won't care even from a scheduling perspective, whether it's Microsoft Project or P6 or what scheduling it is. We won't care what ERP system it is. We're just going to centralize the data warehouse here. We'll have the ability to bring data in from the field through that time collection piece. We'll have the ability to look at CPI, SPI, and a lot of other factors, too, that we'll look at some examples here when we get all done. Push those notifications out by selective notifications and selective information, the information that we choose to send at certain levels to any one of these different stakeholders at the right level, to any one of these kind of folks on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, when we get all done here. So that's kind of the end game here. So let's go ahead and get started. And Shannon, do you want to pop it over to my control, and we'll go ahead and kind of look at the beginning of the process? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing my screen here. We're going to open up with $100, and I'm just going to go and start with the training job. For those of you that are not familiar with $100, what we're looking at right now is our CBS, our work breakdown structure. Most of you are familiar, or you may be familiar with $, so we're looking at our work breakdown structure, which can be organized many, many different ways. On the left-hand side, your job can be organized in a variety of different ways. It's all customizable. In my particular case, I have my job here organized where I have some mobilization, some clearing and grubbing, some aggregate base, and in the center here I've got the detail of how my job is organized. I'm starting with some items, so I've got some unclassified excavation. Underneath that I've got an excavation item, I've got an abatement item. We're going to kind of pick on an item right now today that I've got already underway to kind of start at the beginning of the process, and we're going to watch the ball kind of bounce, from the beginning all the way to the end. So let's pick on that item and see what we've got going today. So as we estimated this thing out, we've got 50,000 cubic yards of work to be done on this unclassified excavation. What makes that up, or what partly makes that up, is 180,000 cubic yards of excavation that we have under this item. What drives that, if we look at the detail here, is we've got a ton of resources that are kind of driving that item to make that happen. I've got a water truck that we're going to have out there for 368 hours. I got a dozer at 368 hours as well. There's a scraper out there. There's a smoother out there. We're going to have a foreman out there. We're going to have an operator. We're going to have an operator class 2 out there. So we've got a bunch of things that are going to happen. And they're all duration-based. So what that means is that, from a schedule perspective, when Eric starts showing the schedule on the scheduling side and we make changes to the schedule, if we do have any duration changes that are going to happen, then all my costs and all my effect of those schedule changes could have a cost effect on my hard dollar cost on this side of the fence. So those things are kind of tied at the hip the way that we have it set up here. And I open my tab here so I can show you that and reflect that. So right now we're kind of tied at the hip with these items with Primavera, and I've got one thing kind of affecting the other here too as well. So we started with the cost on this side of the fence, and we're going to build that cost model. The next thing what we're going to do is then we're going to update Primavera, or update Primavera from hard dollar. So I'm going to toss that cost model over to the schedule. Click OK here. And then I'm going to kind of toss it over to Eric. So he's going to show you on the scheduling side those resources being built out over there. So Shannon, would you do me a favor and toss it over to Eric?
Okay. So let me know, can you guys see my screen here?
Yes, looks good, Eric.
Okay, perfect. So essentially what we've got here is that same hard dollar estimate, and as you press the schedule to update Primavera from hard dollar, essentially what I went through is I went through my job properties just to make sure that everything that I needed on the schedule side was going to show up accordingly. So essentially as I go to my master job properties and I choose the schedule tab, I wanted to make sure that my login options here tell me the database that I'm going to be bringing it to, the mapping options as far as what I'm going to be using, whether it's the cost breakdown structure code or the schedule ID. In this case, to build a baseline schedule, I was going to use it as the schedule ID, and I'm going to manage the WBF structure from the scheduling side of Primavera. And then when I need to vice versa and then re-update hard dollar from Primavera with actuals, I can then go ahead and do that from there. My resources, I've got all the jobs resources that are going to be mapped over, okay, as well as any expense costs that are going to be bringing over as well. And then I can also update Primavera with my physical percent complete from hard dollar. So once we actually get that schedule into P6, essentially this is that same project that we're looking at. And once you are able to just take that job at a click of a button, as Ron just showed, all we have to do is update Primavera from hard dollar, and it literally builds the complete schedule. So here's essentially the cost breakdown structure, well, as a work breakdown structure now in P6, okay? And to me, as a scheduler, I see this as a horizontal type WBS. To me, this is something that's much more workable versus a vertical type WBS. And it all got built with that just one click of a button. So this is going to minimize any duplication of work that has to be done in the field here. So as it builds my WBS, you'll notice that I have that same excavation activity right here. And as I'm on the Resources tab down on the bottom, take a look at all of the resources that got brought over, whether this came from my R.S. Means dictionary or Richardson's dictionary that's built right into hard dollar, which is by far one of my most favorite things as a cost estimator. Manually going through those books was terrible. So the fact that you guys have it as a digital database was amazing for me to be able to build the cost estimate and then just simply click a button and have it build my complete schedule here. So here's all the resources for that excavation activity that simply came right over from my estimate. And you'll notice that as soon as it brings it over, what I've done is I took all those activities and I tied it in a logical format of how I'm going to execute this schedule, okay? So all my logic is here. I'm literally ready to just go maintain a baseline, create a baseline here, and save it. Once I have added all my logic, I've got it fully cost loaded, resource loaded. Now I've got a baseline that's ready to go for this schedule. And I'm able to now track it in the schedule portion, and then also bring that date information from my schedule back into hard dollar by simply going up here and updating hard dollar back from Primavera. So essentially the power from a scheduler, essentially the estimator can also do the scheduling. And to me, the estimator has probably the best knowledge of the breakdown of work that's going to be done, because that's how you won the project in the first place. So essentially, as I look at my expenses tab, it brings over all my expenses. If there are any associated with any of these elements, such as mobilization, I do have an allowance cost for mobilization. But essentially, we can put in these plug numbers for any expenses. But the real power lies in the resources, where essentially I've got all my resource units built from that estimate, and it's determining my budgeted costs. So I can create these layouts in here to be able to show me either a roll-up of all of these activities within this work breakdown structure, giving me a pretty solid report if I have to report this to my superiors or stakeholders. So the power on the Primavera side is incredible. And I'll go to this Resource Assignments tab here, and you can take a look at all of the resources that got brought in and assigned to the specific activities within my schedule. Okay, so all of these are customizable, and if I really have to do some heavy resource planning throughout the project lifecycle, this is where I can do it. And then I can bring the same information back into hard dollar and control the cost from the cost engineering perspective. So to me, this is where we hit the sweet spot. Okay, and Ron, I'll go ahead and flip it back over to you.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, no, that's great. So now that we've got the schedule updated and we've upgraded hard dollar back over from the schedule, we made some changes in there. Now let's focus on job tracking, and let's focus on the progress piece, and let's kind of go back to that same item. And I believe we've got, if I understand correctly, I think we've got Mike actually on the call, actually connected now. Is that correct? Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I sure can.
Awesome. Hey, if I toss it over to you, is it okay if I share your screen now?
Yeah, just 1 second here. Yeah, if you want to give me about 1 minute. Yeah,
no problem. Here's what I'll do is, because I'll just kind of set it up. What we're going to do right now is we've updated the schedule. So just to rehash, we created the cost model. We built out the schedule. We've updated the schedule as Eric's demonstrated. We made some adjustments in it. We've tossed it back over to hard dollar and made those changes. I've now opened up the job tracking screen, and we're looking at one item of the job tracking and how we're measuring it. I've showed you a little bit of direct entries down here and some time entries that could come from either the ERP system, they could come from the field, or they could come from some direct entries that we've actually placed some work directly to that one specific item, the item that we looked at earlier, that excavation item, for, against those quantities, those man hours, that unit cost, to actually reflect the cubic man hours per hour, and how we plan that work. What Mike's going to show us right now is an overview of how Abide Time is really capturing the work from the field, and we're going to kind of walk through how that may affect the time entry down here, how we actually collect quantities, how we're collecting hours from the field, and how those entries wind up getting populated in the long run into the hard dollar system. And so whenever you're ready, Mike, we'll pop it over to your side.
Yeah, you can go ahead and bounce to my screen, and I'll start up. We'll have David logged on here in just a minute as well to continue forward.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Mike.
You bet.
All right.
Okay, so all right, thank you. So as a quick lead-in, the key to About Time and what we're doing in this process and kind of the approach that we've taken is that our overall approach is simplicity in the field and then also giving the capability to the back-end office through leveraging the mobile technology that our system is built around. So a few key points with that is our system was actually developed and built by contractors for construction companies. So I'm one of the founding partners of About Time Technologies, and our CEO also is historically a general contractor for about 15 years before we started About Time. The key that we have built into our system is basically because of the challenges that we were experiencing within our own businesses and organizations, we knew that it was critical and important that we built a product that was capable, yet at the same time able to be managed by field personnel or people that are, again, labor-oriented and out there actually, managing projects directly. As far as the approach with simplicity and visibility, we've got the approach of taking decision makers and giving them tools out in the field actually, as opposed to back office systems where they are able to manage the project with feedback from the integration with hard dollar and the earned value management process that they have put together, and providing and sending field data into that system where the integration tools are pushed back out to the device and visibility is given directly to those people who are actually managing the projects. So essentially, as an overall perspective, we want to empower those field personnel with better tools that are actually going to deliver that value back into the hard dollar system. And I don't know if David Perry is back on yet. He's actually going to go through the process and actually demonstrate with some of the field tools and devices exactly how this process happens. Is David on yet? No, Ron is okay. David, are you with us?
Yeah, I sure am.
Okay, perfect. I just gave a few bullets. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you cut out. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I had just shared a few bullet points on basically the approach that About Time has taken to try and solve the challenges that companies are having out in the field in collecting and gathering this data. And I just shared with the audience that you were going to go into the process of exactly how we do that on a field device.
Yeah, that's so simple. This is really built for simplicity for the basically the money makers in the field who don't have time to be fumbling around with technology or paper or whatnot. So we've made it very, very simple to do so. What you see on my screen here is the actual face of my Android smartphone. and this runs on all sorts of different devices. You name it, if it has an OS on it, we probably run on it. But each employee is given a 4 or 5-digit PIN code, or a foreman is also given a PIN code who can clock his crew in. So real quick, first I'll look at an employee. I'll go ahead and put in their 4-digit PIN code here. You can see we use nice big buttons, in and out, green and red, left and right, very, very simple. Sarah here can go ahead and choose in, and she has a very simple workflow. She just gets on the clock. I've got a second person here who I've given a little more flexibility, so you can see that we can incorporate different types of workflows to gather the information that you require. So Larry, I put in his 4-digit PIN. I choose the in button. I had him on a different cost code in the last demonstration I did, so it prompts me to ask for his units, a key component for the data that we deliver over to hard dollar. So then after that, he sees his list of cost codes that he can go ahead and clock into. So I can just grab whatever cost code it might be. I can also prompt him to clock onto a piece of equipment if I have equipment tracking tied to that particular cost code. So I can get his time for labor. I can get his job cost by selecting a cost code. I can get his equipment time by selecting the equipment. And then as you saw, when I go to clock into another cost code, it'll ask me for his units. So I can grab all those in one fell swoop, get all that data required, and it happens in a matter of 5 seconds or so. So very simple to do, very quick, but extremely powerful for that data that you require to make decisions. Well, it's still timely, daily in other words. So that's looking at the employee. Let's real quick go over to a foreman or a crew leader. You can see I put in Tim's 4-digit PIN code here. He has a lot more options, but we'll just stick with clock in or out. You can see he clocked only himself in last time, but I could go down the list and I can have a long list of employees here, or restrict it down to what's relevant. So you can see I grabbed a few employees there. Now it's going to remember those employees for if I need to switch them to a different cost code throughout the day, or at the end of the day clock them out. Very simple for the foreman. So if I choose in here, I can be prompted to change the job if we're visiting a number of locations or phases throughout the day, and then I can also go ahead and clock my crew into a cost code. Extremely simple. So at the end of the day, if I do have a connection, actually, this data is flowing into the office as it's happening. Otherwise, at the end of the day, I will simply click this button here to go ahead and sync the data. Maybe I've been in a remote area where there's no connectivity. That's okay. For about time, we can run in complete disconnect mode. And then once you have a connection, go ahead and sync up. Get any changes automatically on the device that happened in the office. It's relevant to this particular foreman's device or employee's device. And then also send the day's data in where it can be reviewed, edited as need be, and also approved, and then sent off to hard dollar. So let's jump over to the office, and I already have this loaded up here where you can see a record that I synced in this morning. You can see Sarah Rollins here, the clock that she clocked in on, her location code, the actual location or job that she worked on, the task code, and her it scrolls her clocked in time and the date, and the clocked out time, her total time. I can see that it was approved by the employee in the field and the manager. So we'd want to probably go through, for this particular workflow or this company, one more office approval, and then maybe that final say-so that's going to go ahead and send that data over to hard dollar. So from there, once I've approved this data, we have a simple export. Well, actually, it's not even export. It's direct through the API of hard dollar, so it gets that data in there instantly. So that same day when this data's come in, I can go ahead and review it, approve it, and then simply send it right over to hard dollar to make the magic happen that happens in hard dollar, where you can see exactly where you're at on your project that same day or at the latest the next morning. Extremely powerful. So from there, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Ron. Are you there, Ron?
Thanks for that. That puts us in a good spot. That's a great transition for us. That puts us in a great spot. So now, if we take all of that information, awesome display of that, and remember we're just off in the field, now put it in context against that item. So now we've got progress against it. Imagine that information against that item and what that crew just did. Now you've got that crew summary here against the work that just got done, the quantity information that just got built out against that item, and the production details that just got placed against those quantities, the duration that just occurred, and the production details that just got placed against the work that was performed. And here's the cool part. Yeah, lots of stuff just happened, math's getting done all over the place, but now things are starting to make sense, right? That we can put into meaningful and really management type of information that normally, not only would you not have the information to even make those types of decisions, but it would take an extremely a long period of time to even get that information out of the field and get it to the right people's hands. So this is kind of where the sexy part comes into play and starts to come into fruition, starting with the production details. So if I go back to that first tab, and you kind of focus on the right-hand side here, percent of plan, just on that one item. You could look at this at the job level or at the item level. You look at that one item. In a perfect world, on that item, quantity-wise, if I was 47% done here on quantity, I'd be 47% done on duration as well, too. I would be, my man-hours would be 47% done as well. My equipment, if I had any, would be the same percentage. If I was a 5-minute manager, I could just look right down that column, and everything would just jive right down. This is not, of course. It's not lining up. If I scroll over to the right and look at that production details, graph it out, that blue line is what I plan production-wise. Latest as-built, trending is what's going on out there. Is all those entries from the field, as David just showed us. I started out, like a rocket ship. I was killing it. And then suddenly, based on either the foreman that's been running my crew or my crew's production, I can see some trend stuff that's been going out there on that excavation, which has not been good. I've been trending down, and I've just been leveling out, and I'm kind of getting back to where I thought I was going to be, and I'm going to keep an eye on that for a while. I also have the ability to really look at what's going to happen crystal ball-wise now, because my planned man-hours at completion were originally 3,680. My spending hours right now are 1,033. My forecasted right now are 2,970. So I have some great kind of crystal ball information that's going to help me get there, and the ability to really forecast, edit the forecast, and do some really cool things with understanding how I want to forecast it. Hard Dollar's done some ginormous things in the last 12 months with flexibility of how I want to reforecast that data from a manual forecast perspective, using the latest entries, using the historical part of it, using the average, using the last entries. So now I can kind of drive a lot of flexibility as to how I want to future forecast the information, and then toss it back, the opening graph we had over to the ERP system, toss that information to ERP so they can roll it up into the budget. This stuff is, because and I hope we can all see it. I apologize, because sometimes you see things in little pieces like this, and it's hard to see the big picture. I hope sometimes that we can kind of show it fast enough where it all makes sense together. But now we can kind of see things kind of coming together. When you start to see the collection, you start to see the model, you start to see the schedule. Now we look at the forecast. We toss it back over to ERP. Now we see it coming together when we start to see the forecast, how everything's united. This last piece that I'm about to show you is the presentation layer, where we start to show the exceptions against that forecast, against these entry items. And I'm going to pop over to there right now. So this part is the kind of the web layer. So here's our dashboard presentation layer. And I just kind of randomly open it up to one of the most kind of individual ones. There's over 100 different types of reports and different types of exceptions and things that I can send out. This is the Hard Dollar Lasso product, which literally rounds them up, hence the Lasso name, against that universal cost control warehouse that we house all that information in. Again, agnostic, so it comes from the ERP system database, it comes from the different cost control warehouse information that we see here. This particular one we're looking at is a heat map of the 4 different projects, so that we have in our realm here. If I double click on, for example, like that 4th Avenue project that we have, it's going to drill down to the work breakdown structure at those level 1 items that we have and tell us from a CPI perspective that our cost performance index, how we're performing under 1 or over 1, are in danger or not in danger. So we don't have anything that's horribly bad, but we've got some things that are 0.96, so not horribly bad here, but just in the yellow that are just under 1, right? But nothing that we would consider bad in the way that we're looking at things. From an earned value perspective, and again, this is daily, because we've got the start stuff from the about time collection piece, we're getting this every day. We're not waiting to the month end. We're getting it from the morning. We're having it right now in the afternoon. Daily earned value reconciled to the ERP system every day with these graphs being presented to all of those stakeholders every single day. Here's our budget at completion being calculated, our planned value being calculated and sent out as well, our earned value being calculated as well too, again, against the work that's been performed being received from the field, against what the actual values are as they're being collected. Our gold card report, which is another one of those standard reports that we've got in here for calculating budgeted cost of the work scheduled, budgeted cost of the work performed, actual cost of the work performed. We've got our schedule values, again, tying that into what Eric showed earlier in terms of the integration into the schedule, making that all possible. So the cool part about having everything time-phased now is when we've got all of that scope stuff time-phased, all of the magic, if you will, of this stuff makes everything here possible. And that's really what kind of makes it come together. Make it agnostic so that we're not tying it into any one particular system, but time-phasing everything, and then likewise putting those cost elements around those elements. So when we talk about EVM360 really coming to life, it's really the first time possible to make that happen. And that last piece is really that mobile element, getting that mobile management so that anybody, every stakeholder, the owner of the EPCM, the contractor, now has the true collaboration and at any level to send these things out at the degree to which you'd like them to see. The neat part about that is, and I won't get into the weeds on this because that's not what this is really all about, but I will show you something that's pretty neat. On the left-hand side, there's a very normalized information that we're looking at. So without being a database manager or without being a programmer, you can look at a database that's looking at a cost control warehouse here that just spells out what normal project people understand. So from a cost perspective, a current budget, a current estimate, a forecast, an original budget, and simply dragging and dropping those items into the right-hand side over here, I can build things out that I'd like to see out of the warehouse and then selecting the kind of graph that I want to see. So with like a 5 or 10 minute training period, I understand and can build things out on my own, and then have the ability to publish those things to the people that I would like to see those elements to, and send those things to the specific members that I'd like to send them to without having to go through some very complex IT structure to kind of get them there. So that's kind of the start to finish. Getting there in the morning, setting up the base model, setting up the progress, forecasting, reforecasting, scheduling, rescheduling, baselining it out, rebaselining it out, accruing what we do as our values, matching those accrued values back up again, forecasting that data against now, pushing this information out to those stakeholders, and then managing those members out and what that collective data really looks like, allowing those members to really get the data that they'd like to see, managing it in a way that they'd like to see it, and then configuring it, allowing them to configure it also in a way that is specific to them and the way that they'd like to see it, all from start to finish. What's really, really exciting again about this is that it's really never been possible before to get that kind of daily earned value every single day and make it simple. Now it is, and now it's agnostic in a way where we're not tied to any one system. And for the practical purpose of even having an estimating discussion, it's not tied to just even from a hard dollar estimating. So you could use any estimating system, whether it's a XYZ estimating system or an XYZ project control system. This whole concept of the universal cost control warehouse and hard dollars project cost management really kind of what's used to unite all of these things. So where we see, and I just want to kind of share this with you, from a vision perspective, we see leading organizations all across multiple industries today, and this is really where our sweet spot's at right now, oil and gas, mining, big infrastructure, trying to unite, trying to collaborate. Obviously, there's a tremendous value in doing this, and I don't think there's any question that in the next 24 months, the next 3 years, it's not going to be a choice. I think that organizations are pushing, they're pushing their subs, they're pushing their contractors, obviously for better collaboration. And if you're a laggard in the back and you're kind of hesitating on not, staying on spreadsheets and staying disparate, inevitably you're going to have to get there. So it's how do I fix this today? At the very least, you have to kind of start thinking about how do I do these things today. So that's why I think these kind of workshops are important to share ideas with together and start at least thinking about how can I do a better job of doing this today, because I need to start thinking forward, to get there. I hope this was at least a taste test and a little valuable in getting there in that vision. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to spend the time with us today. I know it was a lot of information thrown at you really quickly. I also hope that if you'd like to learn a little bit more about any segment of this, please reach out to us. I think there's a contact slide at the end. We're very happy to take you through any piece of it. And any one of these terrific speakers that were on the phone with me today, from About Time, from D.R. McNatty, all the way across the board from Hard Dollar, I'd be more than happy to kind of share with you any one of the components that kind of help us get there along the way. And I really appreciate their time as well, too. We're also trying to make these workshops really informative, not make them kind of product-centric, but also very visionary in terms of thought leadership. So next month, I know we're going to slant it a little bit. We're going to stay very focused on the whole 360 collaboration, drive. But your feedback on that as well, too, is greatly appreciated. So if you got some ideas on, hey, I'd really like to see more on blank, please, let us know, because I'd like to drive that in that direction. But this is a very hot topic for us right now, because this is the kind of feedback that we're getting all the time. So thank you very much for attending today, and we hope to see you next time. I don't see any questions up, so before I end it, I'm just going to double check. Are there any questions, Shannon? See? Am I missing anything on that? All right. I don't hear anybody, but if there's no questions, then thank you again for attending. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Mike, thanks a lot. Dan and Eric, thanks. Dave, thank you so much, you guys, for being in attendance today. And we'll see you next month. And we really appreciate the time you spent with us today. And have happy projects, and good luck with your projects out there. Have a great month, guys. Take care.